Hey guys, thanks for joining us this week. My name is Samantha and Remoy.
Yo, my name's RGP1. Middle name George for Sam's reminder. I don't remember your middle name. Lou?
Yes.
Oh, I did
Samantha,
remember.
Lou, and Remoy. That's right. And this is Masculinity, you guys. Last episode. Yay.
Season 1.
I know. I can't believe it. Yeah, so it's been really great. And to open up, I just want to, chop it up about what went down for me this week. I had a chance to attend the panel at the Brooklyn Library with the Gender Equity Commission of New York City. It was really cool. I mean, there were like a lot of different people there, a lot of people who were just doing big shit, in the world of gender equity for the city. And, it was...
Like a friend Jimmy Briggs?
Well, he invited me, but he wasn't there.
Oh.
Yeah, he told me about it, but he wasn't there. I think he's in India or something.
Jimmy Briggs, who was on a podcast episode something or another earlier this season.
Yes, he's amazing. He's wonderful. And so I think...
What does gender equity mean for those who don't know? Like myself with my hand up.
Oh, okay. Gender equity.
So I know what equality means, but what does gender equity mean?
No, it means equality, right? But it means equality and equity in certain spaces, right? So like, what does it mean for gender equity to actually be manifested in life? Like, not just us to like think of gender as like genders as equal, but like what does that look like in real life? And so the way that they separated it, they had 4 quadrants. One was health and reproductive rights. The other was, I don't remember all the quadrants, but one thing that I mentioned that one because I was very interested to see what the city was doing about mental health. Specifically, when we talk about mental health, making sure that if we're talking about gender equity, that we're talking about having mental health services for men as well. And when I raised my hand to ask that question, they were like, yeah, we've got to do what we can to, also involve the abusers in the conversation. And I was like, that's not what I said. But you see how you jumped right to men being abusers rather than men being victims. And that's really what's missing for the city. So what I'm trying to do is see how I can get up in there to foster that conversation. Because there were 3 guys there and one of them was asleep.
Woof.
I know.
And it wasn't Remoy.
I tell you, if you had come, that would have generally boosted up like the percentage of dudes that were there. Because there would have been 4 and there would have been 3 awake. And that would have been,
yeah.
I know. So that was cool. And then the other thing that happened this week was like somehow I watched Boys in the Hood for the first time in my life. You guys, don't shoot me.
Shout out to my man Doughboy. Shout out to Q.
I know. And it was really good to actually watch it because it was right after it was this week, right? And last week we talked to Chris Saunders about like masculinity in the hood, and I really felt for Doughboy. Even though he was calling women bitches and hoes. I was like, no one is out there like guiding you, young man. There's no one out there guiding you. There's no one out there.
It was like Larry Fishburne, like whatever, his friend's dad or whatever.
Yeah. I forgot his name.
Yeah,
he was fine back in the day. Woo!
He was going by Larry Fishburne at that point. Instead of Lawrence Fishburne.
I like Lawrence. That's sexy.
Yeah, mad sexy.
Except I watched Blackish and now he's like mad dad-like, which like I still love you, Morpheus, but like it's a little different. Anyway, so I mean it was deep and I really felt for Doughboy. I cried.
I mean, there's that really intense gentrification scene where they like call out gentrification in the early 90s and like we up in here in Brooklyn now acting like we don't like gentrification's a new thing. Larry Fishburne was dropping knowledge back then. I watched it's Halloween. I hate Halloween, or it's post Halloween, day or 2 removed, and I hate it. I think it's I hate any event or any party or any situation where you're supposed to have all sorts of fun. So pretend like you're having so much fun. Oh my God, candy! I don't like it. Costumes. Whoa, you're so clever. I don't care.
I know.
But I did watch Stranger Things.
Oh,
Season 2.
I kind of I've never watched it.
I'll just say this. No spoilers here. Just say when it's not so great, it's really just not so great. But when it's really good, it's really effing good.
Okay. All right.
So take that for whatever it is. But when I was watching Stranger Things, I also was knitting.
Yes.
For those who don't know, I'm a big knitter. So shout out to all the dudes out there, masked or not, who knit like crazy.
Yeah. Remoy can knit his ass off, y'all. I've seen his work.
Made some beautiful shit. Let me tell you like a masculinity related story. So once I was like on the B26 bus, getting off work, going straight back to Bed-Stuy where I was living at the time. And like when you're knitting in public, you can get either one or two reactions, like "Oh my god," and it's usually a beautiful girl who's like "Oh my god," and you're like "Word, word," or you get the like look like you're
Fuck you doing?
yeah. So I was on the bus, and there was this big construction worker, brolic older dude in the back, and he was kind of giving me a look, and I was like, "Fuck." It was like the latter of those looks. And then like I pulled a little chain to stop the bus, and I'm about to get up, and all of a sudden I hear like a hey 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 hey.
Damn. Might get fought on this train or on this bus.
I'm about to get myself into some trouble. I don't know how to defend myself verbally. But then all he says is young man, young man. I was like, yeah. And he goes, yo, you're really talented. And then I was like, heart melted almost immediately. And then he goes, I always wanted to learn how to do that. And I was just like, shout out to New York City, because I love New York City, because it'll just
moments like that,
magical moments that'll catch you off guard, where people are just a little bit more open, it seems. Not all the time, believe me, not all the time, but there's times where people are just big old construction worker dude riding his way home from a long day and just says, I wish I could learn how to knit sometime.
I know. Oh my God, are you guys?
He didn't wear a mask. He wasn't wearing
exactly. I love that, you know. And there's moments like that in New York that make you forget all about the 8-month long winter that's about to happen. But anyway,
also been watching a lot of basketball. It's been a weird, freakishly weird season in the sense that the Cavs are like at the bottom of the East, the Warriors at the midpoint, like middle of the pack in the Western Conference. And at the beginning of the season, I was like, of the NBA season on this podcast, I said, "Oh, the season's over. Warriors, Cavaliers."
Yeah, no.
I don't know shit about.
Yo, Kyrie has been working his ass off on Boston, even though like I'm kind of mad at Kyrie right now because I did want him to stay with the Cavs, but he's doing it in Boston. I don't have any issues with Boston.
These teams are it's so much fun to watch, like the bad teams, and they're not even bad. Like the Sixers, Ben Simmons looks good.
Right.
Adam Silver, hey, I know you're probably listening out there, and you're wondering when we can sit down and talk about sponsoring the Masculinity Pod. My schedule is open.
Yes.
Let's make it happen.
That's right.
But with basketball always on the dome, and since we are wrapping up our first season, I think you and I should go one-on-one.
I thought it was cute. I'm down. Let's get it. Let's not do it on the court, though, because I can shoot, but that's about it.
I can't do much with a busted knee. Let's just ask each other some hard questions, and we'll leave it all out on the figurative court and really try to keep like honesty in mind and humanity in the back of our brains, or in the front of our brains, really, and really get at to break down masculinity and gender. You ready?
All right, let's get it. I'm excited about this.
Okay,
let's just also mention that our opinions are our own. I'm not speaking for all like black women out there.
I'm speaking for all dudes right now.
I'm not speaking for all Cameroonian French women out there who moved here at the age of 11 and grew up in California and France. I'm speaking for Samantha Lunzesi.
Named Remoy.
Okay, but you're speaking for all dudes because I'm about to hit you with the questions.
Yo, it's good like I'm like Klay Thompson on D. I don't give a.
Oh my God, Klay Thompson is really tan right now. I was like, I need to move back to California. Anyway, you know what? This is absolutely, okay, cool.
All right, so I'm going to get you with my first question. I just checked you the ball. You checked it back.
Okay.
I'm about to hit the lane hard. When me and you were talking with Christopher Saunders in our last episode, we were talking off air, and he brought up the idea of like dual consciousness and how identity is a complex conversation, especially when it comes to like the black identity or the African American identity. So to keep that in mind, we've talked about it a lot this season, and I honestly somewhat get it. Like being a woman and being treated like an object is very dehumanizing. Only seeing you as a sexual object, and like the cat calls and like all the shitty like was skeletal women in lingerie on TV, and how that shitty situation for just be a woman in the everyday living world.
Like being treated like you're not actually like someone with like feelings and ambitions and
sure.
All that, you know.
But with all that in mind, how do you reconcile that at times in the real world that you and I both exist in, women dress super sexy and act super provocative, and at times, honestly, seem like they enjoy the attention, and they look even more so, they enjoy like being the object of a man's desires.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting question. I think that the phrase being the object of a man's desire, I would like to rephrase that to enjoying being desired by a man. I think that being an object of someone's desire. I mean, I think of like a car is the object of my desire. Like I'm trying to get that Porsche Cayenne by the time I'm 40. You know what I'm saying? And I think that sometimes, I think that a lot of times women are viewed as trophies and as ways that men can elevate themselves, right? So like if you have somebody who's on your arm who just looks amazing, the fact that you're talking about somebody being on your arm and looking amazing in the first place is treating someone as an object. It's like a beautiful Jesus chain. You know what I'm saying? And I think when we talk about women being scantily clad or, enjoying the attention, I think it's important to recognize that a lot of people enjoy attention. I think, when dudes like buy their...
I love when a girl looks at me. I love when anybody looks at me and gives me a little attention. So yeah, you're right.
It's like, when dudes walk around with like...
Mad swaggy.
Exactly. Like I love when guys wear like, like short sleeves, like button up t-shirts and button that shit all the way up. Like all close to the body. That's sexy, right? But I'm saying like nobody is looking at that man and being like, wow, he is loving being the object of Samantha's desire. He's loving being objectified by all the women in here, looking up how he, you know what I'm saying, buttoned up his shit all the way to his neck. No, but women get that because we're looked at as like inherently like we're just inherently like tempting men by just existing. The fact that we have boobs and ass and like eyelashes is apparently enough to exist in the capacity of only being able to tempt another human being rather than being a human being who just likes to look sexy sometimes. You know what I'm saying?
No, I think I completely agree. And I think what you're pointing at is like there's a very fine line between like being an object and just being desired and being. You're right. Like I want to be attractive. I want people to like me. I want people to think I'm physically attractive, but also interesting in them and like intellectually attractive, right? But it's so, I guess, easy to like put women in this place once we see that because we've been conditioned for so long to think, oh yeah, they just want to be the object. And they want to be the object. Like we see them as objects, so they almost naturally, they want to be the object. We can't see that fine line and that relationship between wanting to be attractive versus wanting to be an object.
Right. And actually, and one thing that I don't want to like not mention is like we live in a paradigm, right, where like we have been socialized to appeal to the dominant, right? So that means that can be by and large, right? It's like, so, a woman can also abuse that. Whatever power she can get, with like her body being amazing, her, from her beautiful appearance, she can also use that to get what she wants. We see it all the time with, people who are considered to be gold diggers or whatever, which I don't know how I feel about that term because I know that there are also a lot of men who get with like women.
Or just men who use their whatever to manipulate people and get what they want.
Exactly.
Like, it's not as derogatory.
Exactly. And so, and like that's somebody's, like if that's your game, that's your game, right? And like I think that it's important to point out that sometimes people do use that for their gain, and it still doesn't make them an object. It still makes them a person who is doing some shit to get what they want. And whether, however people feel about that is however people feel about it. But I think that the genderization of that objectification is not serving anyone.
I tried to cross you up, but you hung with it, yeah?
Not me.
I couldn't get into that paint. All right, fine. Your ball.
There is this ridiculous objectification of women out there. And like, I'm not even gonna lie, as somebody who has grown up in this society, I feel like a lot of times, sometimes I'll be like, oh shit, you know what I'm saying? She got a nice ass or whatever. And so I think one thing that I'm really wondering about is like, what is up with the policing of women's bodies? In the sense that women are seen as objects who are there for the enjoyment of men's sexual desires, but aren't actually allowed by society to have their own, independent of men. And, like I was talking to a woman, she has a company called What's in Your Box. And she was telling me about how she like got into a fight basically with like she's trying to advertise her product, and like the advertiser was like, no, we can't use this because you use the word pleasure. And apparently it's so not okay for women to experience pleasure because the company is for sex toys and like, you know, sex tips or whatever for women. And it's so not okay for women to have pleasure. Just the word pleasure was enough for her to get her disqualified for this. Because women can have pleasure without men. It's crazy. And then you know what I found out? I didn't know this, and maybe this is me being naive and uninformed, but I just found out that Viagra is actually like, well, we talked about this, I think. Because Viagra is like subsidized by the government for like certain people. Like it's actually something that like you can get as like a prescription or whatever for like, for, you know, y'all know what it does. Anyway, you know, and it's like I'm over here like, but women have to pay a luxury tax on their tampons because we get periods so that we can give birth to all y'all motherfuckers. So I'm just like, I don't get it.
I don't want to mix my metaphor here, but you really threw a softball there, didn't you? Jesus. Look, this is not going to be the answer you want. Straight up. But I think that's part of the reason we're having this podcast and this conversation is try to better understand that. And like whether it's the objectification of women or whether it's this kind of imprisonment of women's sexuality and also pleasure and her own agency, like even in that, like that is a severe issue. But for so long, to use your word, socialized, or we've normalized it, it's become so absolutely normal to see the woman being accepting a man's sex, and it's strictly for the man's pleasure. I don't know why that started. I don't have the historical context to give you when it started, but it has been going on so much through social systems, whether it's religion, whether it's traditional education, and so on and so forth. It's become so normalized in society that that's where we're at. The goal has to be to kind of create like a trip where we no longer see it as normal. And that's what I'm hoping for, that we can see these things that have become so kind of natural in our lives and understand how absurd they are. Mm-hmm. And oh my God, women can enjoy sex too.
Women do enjoy sex too. Women do have sex with people just because they want to have sex with them, not because I was listening to, sorry to interrupt, but I have to say this because I was listening to the Young Turks recently, and the guy, I think his name is Sank.
Yeah, Sank. He's hilarious.
I mean, he's hilarious, but then he said something like, we were talking about, he was talking about Kevin Sorbo, who like came out and said something about like the Versace dude, like basically at the beginning of his career, like apparently he would like point at people on the beach. He used to live in Miami, and he would just point at people on the beach and be like, bring that guy up here, whatever. And like, I guess like started touching his thigh when Kevin Sorbo went up there or whatever. Anyway, Sank is like, oh, well, men are men. Men are men. It doesn't matter if they're trying to like, you know, get at women or at men, but men are more visual creatures and they just enjoy sex more than women do. Something to that effect. And I was like, what world are we living in? We've
repressed women so much in their pleasure and their sexuality that it's normal. That it just, for everybody, just like, oh yeah, that's normal. Men are way more sex seeking.
Like, where does it say that women don't enjoy sex as much as that's? And it just went on. He just said that. And I'm like, you're on the Young Turks. Like, people come to you when they want to hear the truth and they don't want to hear the bullshit. And when he said that, I was like, damn, like masculinity is just like, just fucking in his fibers, in all of our fibers, right? That would happen. I mean, I was floored.
Yeah, I mean, I think not to say that we're better than the Young Turks, but
right.
Hey-o.
I mean, shout out to Young Turks still. I still respect them, but
real.
I just had to say that.
No, but I think like, this conversation has to like happen. You have to have like new eyes. You have to keep challenging the status quo, and it's hard. I love being a contrarian, so it's not hard for me. But it can be. I understand it can be very hard to like just kind of like absolve everything and just see the norm as the norm. When really, we can look with new eyes and see that some things are a little bit absurd in the way that we treat just everyday humans and our peers and our families and our friends, right? And I hope this conversation, whether it's from us or whether it's just the collective conversation, can change. And we can start actually asking tough questions like you just asked me and start coming up with better solutions to find a better answer. I didn't play the best defense. You got the jumper off. May have yammed in my face.
I mean, I didn't
Griffin
block
style.
you, which, by the way, is my favorite move in basketball as a block. And I didn't block. I mean, you know, you still made it.
I was playing defense.
Oh, okay.
All right, my ball. Sam's up 1-0. Question 2.
God, that's funny. Yes, holler at me.
All right, like real talk. Like, nice guys still lose. Girls still like bad boys. Like the guys who are shitheads, who still treat you like pieces of meat, still seem to be more attractive or more appealing than the nice, thoughtful, sweet guys who are woke. Get at me.
So, a couple things. I think that when you're dealing with somebody who is like a bad boy, so to speak, there's a certainty, right? You know what this person is about. They come at you like, I mean, I don't know. I feel like I have to also address this notion of the fuckboy, right? Like somebody who will like string you along and like ruin your life, and like you're so digmatized that you don't know what to do.
You say digmatized?
I did. That's a term.
Okay, yeah,
that is a term. What I want to address is like expectations. Because I think that when we talk about like a bad boy, whatever, somebody who doesn't respect you, blah, 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 there are people who are very direct about the fact that they're not looking for anything serious, and that if you're going to be fucking with them, like you have to know like this is what it is, right? That is a clear thing. Now, if you continue to run after that guy, that's on you because he told you what the hell was going on. Then you've got the dude who's like, oh, like, no, I love you. I love you. I love you. But they don't really love you. They really just want to get a little something, something from you. And then they're dipping and like having that with other people. That's called fuckboyery. Fuckboyhood. There you go. That's fucked up. But then you have the dudes who are like, I would never do that to you. I'm kind. I'm woke. But then they like want to control you. And I think that when we think about like nice guys, we have to understand that there are like extremes of behaviors that we look at as like inherently problematic, right? Like somebody who like lies to you in your face, somebody who hits you, somebody who ruins your credit. Like those are like super extremes. But then you've got people who are like nice, people who are good boys, who come from good families, but inherently possess those masculinity traits that they're not aware of, and they are also subjecting you to whatever you have to do as a woman or a man to appeal to that.
I mean, it's almost like a bigger lie. The nice guy saying he's a nice guy and acting like he's a nice guy, but still possessing a lot of masculinity, because masculinity is so toxic just from the jump. Even if that kind of is sad for you because you think like, oh, I can't win because I'm still a man. No, it just means you have to dig deeper and try harder and understand that this thing is super deep embedded in society and within you. From the day you were born, you were taught about your masculinity and who what benefits your masculinity allowed you.
Well, and there's another thing too that I want to say is like, okay, and we were just talking about this, right? Like being nice, like there's also like a difference, like for humanity, not just for dudes. There's a difference between being nice to avoid rejection, to avoid confrontation, which is something that I've definitely been guilty of, and I'm working on combating that for myself, for my own growth, and for the benefit of the people around me, and for my own benefit, and being nice, like a kind-hearted human being. And I think if if niceness, like this notion that we have around being like pleasant or whatever, was more rooted in kindness and compassion and love, rather than people pleasing, that as a society, women, men, boys, girls, everyone on the spectrum, we would get further in terms of like being considerate and like actually compassionate, and also keeping people accountable when shit's not right. Because being kind-hearted doesn't always mean being nice, like just letting shit people get away with things. It also means like real love, like actually somebody who stands up for what's right when it's called for. And I think that when we say nice guys or even nice girls, that's rarely what we're talking about.
I got blocked again.
Hassan Whiteside.
Oh, shout out to my man Hassan.
Dude, yo,
he's
the
a beast.
best blocks. He has the best blocks.
He's a beast. Shout out to the Heat.
Yeah.
They ain't doing that great, but they're still fun to watch. They won last night.
Yeah, right. I think he averages like 10 blocks a game.
Yeah, because he's a fucking beast.
He's fucking lit. All right. Okay, so
Yo, for those people who don't like watch basketball or have no context, just let us do our thing.
Just watch it.
Yeah.
Oh, just watch highlights. Start with highlights.
Yeah.
YouTube,
Everybody loves Steph Curry.
Jimmy Butler has a wicked highlight tape from what was like a year ago, but still good. Is it my turn?
Check your ball.
I'm about to hit Remoy with the question.
I'm about to get Blake Griffin. I know it.
Blake Griffin? We'll have to talk more about what you mean later. So here's the thing, right? It often feels as a black woman, as a woman of color, just like looking at the news and looking at what's been going on and looking at everything, right? We're like at a moment in society right now where everybody has oppression on their mind. If we are combating racism, we're still doing it within the gender norms that exist in the bigger context of our society. What I mean by that is that it often feels like men of color don't give women of color the respect that we deserve and don't factor our experiences into the hodgepodge of the oppressive system that is racism, because they're unwilling to see how even within that they have privilege. And so I'm wondering what you see about that. If you have noticed that, what you can say about it. Like,
no, yeah.
I
can try my best. Again, like this is my like safety net here. Like my opinions aren't speaking for every man or every person.
Not,
right? Okay, let's get that out of there. Anyways, no, look, we've used this word a lot throughout this episode, and maybe a lot. I think it's safe to assume a lot of people don't really understand what that means in this context, but like, I'm going to just say the word intersectionality or intersections, right?
Yes.
And what that means is that when it comes to ideas or systems of like racism or classism or all these terms that we use, there's actually levels to them, and there's different ways that different people based on who they are intersect with them. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to sexism, it may affect a black woman different than it affects a white woman, and so on and so forth. That's right. When it comes to classism, it may affect a brown person like myself more than it does an African American person. And we have to start thinking that way in order to give each other more humanity and grace to better understand everybody's situations and where they're coming from and what issues troubled each person, right, in these communities. So with that in mind, with intersectionality in mind, we do have to see that there's different intersections when it comes to sexism or privilege, whether it's white privilege or male privilege.
Or cis privilege.
Sure. And I hope I'm not speaking out of term here, but it's kind of been understood that there's appreciation of white women more so than there are colored women. And I would say the reason for that has what's that?
Women of color.
Sorry, women of color. And the reason that is because I will always kind of default to media, and like media in the sense of TVs and movies and so on and so forth. If we're conditioned to see, if we're seeing constantly that the women who are the most attractive or the women who are in the center of the attention of every movie are predominantly white women, mm-hmm. because white stories are the ones that get told, mm-hmm. Then I'm not saying it doesn't take the responsibility off the viewer, but that's what we see. So we naturally almost become conditioned to believe and socialized to believe like that's what is the most beautiful. If that's what we're constantly told and what we see, then we adopt that idea. And then same when it goes to masculine privilege. Like men have been born with certain privileges that are just ginormously supersede female privileges or anybody else on the gender spectrum. And so whether you're a black male or yellow male, white male, red male, you're going to have male privilege over everybody else on the spectrum, especially females. And you're going to use that, whether you know it or not, or whether you like it or not, to your advantage. So we look at that and we see that there are these intersections, and that's where we have to start. We just have to be able to see that we can no longer, racism does exist, but we can no longer just be fine with calling it racist and calling out racism. We have to go further, and we also have to see sexism and see that it's not just sexism and it's universally prevailing and it affects everybody the same, but we have to even go further.
Also, one thing that I also want to add to that is that it should be everybody's problem, right? So I think one of the things that we've tried to really impress upon our listeners and just in general is just that, when we think about gender equality and we think about women's rights, for example, that should be everybody's problem. And I think that when we think about, like, in the space of the conversation that we're having around men of color not realizing their own privilege a lot of times, I think that it's important to see how, like, it's my problem that the life expectancy for Black trans women is 35. Just because I'm not a trans woman doesn't mean that it's not my problem. It's my problem. That's actually, if I'm being completely honest, one of the, like, if I could write the top 5 reasons why I started this podcast, it would probably be number 2, because it's unacceptable. It's just unacceptable as a society for us to have something like that going on under our watch and to say, well, okay, well, I'm dealing with my shit over here. You know what I'm saying? So not my problem. No, it's our problem. And we have to see how actually all of our problems are interlinked. And if we're tackling our problems with with fervor and dedication, it's actually going to have that trickle down effect to other people, right? So like if we're actually serious about dealing with issues that affect various communities of color, if we're being real and well-rounded about tackling these issues, we can actually make a serious impact on sexism and racism, such that everyone, in terms of like the hierarchy, right? If we're starting with, a heterosexual cisgendered man on down to, it feels really uncomfortable to say this, but then, cis, trans, heterosexual, gay, man, woman, like all of that gets impacted if we're being well-rounded about it. If we're not then being like, oh, you need to support us in our struggle because your issues, yeah, they exist, but this is the real shit right here that we got to deal with.
I got my little like bank shot in right there, like an 8-foot bank in, but
I wouldn't say 8 foot, buddy.
Okay, like a 3 foot from the block bank, like Hassan from the bank. All right, whatever. Sam won 2-1. Not that it's a competition or anything, but it is basketball, so Sam won. But I think I like one-on-one. Like we got some topics out there.
I dig it. I'm into it.
It was deep.
It was great.
Sam ripped it. It was dope. But we got to be real, and we got to get some of the like gender laundry out there in the open. Mm-hmm. Maybe when season 2 comes around, we can do this again. Maybe even like if we get listeners to tweet at us,
yes,
Facebook at us, email us some questions, we can throw out some of those questions and bring in everybody.
Yeah,
maybe some 3-on-3. That's
okay,
but whatever. Yeah, I look forward to season 2.
Yeah, I look forward to season 2 as well. I'm excited. So,
high five. We did season 1.
I know, you guys. This is the end of season 1 of Masculinity. So exciting. I just want to thank everybody who's listening, and I'm excited for what's to come. I'm just really thankful for all of the support that we've had, for all of the people that we got to talk to about these amazing and have amazing conversations.
Like it was like a diverse round of people.
Yeah.
Like all over the place. That was super dope.
I know. Like shout out to, Regine and Barry came through and talked to us and like dropped some knowledge on single sex education.
Changed my mind or opened my mind.
Right.
Opened my mind about single sex education.
I was like, I didn't know. Shout out to Yuval, right? Like dropping huge. All of the knowledge, really kind of a major season opener in terms of guests, in terms of really creating the context of what it is that we're here to do and like why it's so important to have this conversation, right? Of course, the one and only Jimmy Briggs coming through, dropping knowledge on all his experiences as a gender advocate, specifically in masculinity and in general, just around the world, right? Advocating for children and like really just being conscious of humanity and what it looks like to implement organizations to empower youth to make a difference in their communities. Beautiful.
I mean, we got, thanks to, Christopher Saunders, your voice is so sexy on the podcast. Like, I just have my earbuds in. I'm like, ooh, run that voice over me, Saunders. So let's do it again, Chris. David Ritchie from West Texas. Yeah, that was really cool to bring in a West Texas, I'm just going to say white, bearded pastor from the American Southwest or American South to come in and talk about Christianity, which is a very polarizing issue. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, what he talked about and the ideas he brought forth about how he views Christianity, but how he lives his Christian life and how he hopes to teach it, very beautiful and very thoughtful. And it wasn't so just like, Christians hate homosexuals and hate everything in their...
Right. Yeah.
He's actually very open and talked beautifully and poignantly about how Christianity should be less masculine and more thoughtful, more human. So that was dope. I think we also have a special episode coming out later.
We do. I mean, we wanted it to be a surprise, but we'll just tell you. So yeah, we're very excited to have, our bonus episode next week. Jason Tandy Bibiana from Next Gen. Amazing work this guy's doing with this organization. We got romantic on that episode. I mean, yeah, he's wonderful, and we're excited to drop that on you guys next week. Just really illuminating conversation throughout this week and throughout this season. And
super diverse. It's really exciting, really humbling. Mm-hmm. Also humbling and also very grateful is opening track and closing outro track. My boy Tony Mitica.
Tony.
Brother Tony.
Yeah.
With the hot jams. I like it.
That bass, yo.
Sexy. Thank you to Wheeler Preddy. That cool ass logo. Masculinity. It's hot as fuck.
Everybody loves a logo. Thank you, Wheeler.
And most of all,
thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening, for engaging with this conversation, and for most of all, for giving a shit, for caring, because that's really what it's going to take, So thank you very much for engaging with us, and we look forward to having you guys listen to a little more stuff. And we're looking forward to next season. We're going to be talking about a bunch of things. We're going to further the conversation. We started talking about sex a little bit. We're going to talk a lot more about that next season.
It's going to get hot and
heavy. It's going to
make people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's going to be good. We're going to talk about marriage, infidelity, all kinds of shit.
I think I'm really excited to talk about addiction. I think there's there's a lot of interesting fetishization when it comes to alcohol and cigarettes and drugs when it comes to men. Like you have to, if you're masculine, you have to a shot of whiskey and blah, blah,
I know.
Right?
I know. But no martinis for you, right? It's deep. It's fucked up.
But I think it's really important that we talk about the addiction problem there and how that actually kind of hurts men more than it actually supports men. Mm-hmm. I also, real talk, and talked about my own fucked up masculinity. I apologize to everybody especially in this season. I don't know how to have, when it comes to the spectrum and how to be honest with myself. I don't know what words to use sometimes when it comes to pronouns and gender pronouns. And that's the masculine to me, wanting to be right and wanting to be strong and not look weak, right? But I hope next season, which we have some guests in line to talk about what it's like to be queer and adopt masculinity or not, and just really get that conversation out in the open. This is not about men and women. This is not about cis men and women, even though a lot of the time this season it seemed to be. Again, my apologies. Well, I think it's going to be fruitful and beneficial for all of us to just be honest and not be afraid to make mistakes or say the wrong thing, but to better try to understand whether. So we're going to get into a lot of queer shit. Can I say that? Queerness. I'm just going to say queerness. A lot of queerness. And not as these people are queer, so they're queer. No, this is
people.
This is people.
Yeah.
That's okay. And we're going to talk about that. Yeah. When's it happening, though?
So we're going to come back probably around the end of January, mid to end January, to give us some time to do some things, And yeah, I mean, in the meantime, we'll still be posting. We'll still be chopping it up. And we really would love to actually have you guys engage with this conversation, even during a little hiatus. And we would love to have some questions, some topics, some ideas, some comments, whatever you got to say.
Well, how did I get us that?
Well, glad you asked. masculinitypodcast@gmail.com. And you guessed it, masculinity with a K.
There it is.
Ulinity You guys know what I mean. Masculinity podcast at gmail.com. Of course, our Facebook is going to be live and well. Our Twitter is going to be live and well. We will continue to post and engage you guys with critical content and conversation. Facebook, Masculinity Podcast. Twitter, Masculinity Pod. Again, always with a K. So the other thing that you can do is, of course, talk to people, right? Talk to your folks. Engage in conversations and like really have this conversation be your problem. Have it be your problem. Have it be something that actually makes an impact where you are because you're talking about it. And stand up for what you believe is right, not for what your mask has been teaching you your whole life.
Yeah, I think
that's everybody. That's not just.
I think a lot of people, I'd like to believe that there's a lot of people out there who want to have this conversation or want to like talk about these things and who are self-aware that it's within themselves or it's happening in the world around them, but they don't know that it's okay to have this conversation. It's okay to be uncomfortable or not have the right answers or to feel something is wrong, but since the rest of the world is saying it's not wrong, that I can't talk about it. Yeah. But I'm hoping that this serves as like an impetus to like inspire people to have that conversation. Like, it's not just about you and me talking in front of two mics. Like, that's fine and dandy, but hopefully and thankfully that people are talking about this more and this conversation can grow and be a part of a greater discourse.
Yeah. So thanks, guys. And finally, shout out to my amazing co-host, Remoy. You know, it's been real, and I'm so excited.
Beat on one-on-one, but that's okay.
That's all right.
Yo,
beat you a little bit more next season. Just kidding. Anyway.
Thanks to Sam for... for those who don't know the genesis, like Sam brought this idea to me, and it was her idea to create a podcast talking about masculinity because of all the research and kind of engagement in the topic matter that she'd done previously. And so thank you for asking me. Thank you for considering me. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been great, man.
We got a hell of a lot more work to do.
Hell yeah, she's popping off out there. I mean, anyway, yeah, it's been really great. Thank you so much for listening. You guys know where to find us. My name is Samantha Zessie.
My name's Remoy Jorge Philip the first.
And this has been Masculinity. Thank you for listening. Ciao, ciao.
Peace.